Alright guys, I'm gonna show you how to go ahead and handle this real quick. So I'm gonna just show you a little bit of what I did. So I'm gonna open up Telnet. Now basically what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of information, just how it was shown in the example. So I'm gonna go ahead and put get slash index dot html http slash 1.1 enter, double enter actually. That was a bad request actually, but I'm gonna see if it still works either ways. So now what you want to go and do is 10.10.139.180 slash flag dot thm, and there you go. Just click on this, copy paste that onto there, and you're set to go. Moving on to task number 4, I believe it is. Yep. So file transfer protocol. File transfer protocol, or a FTP, was developed to make the transfer of files between different computers with different systems efficient. FTP also sends and receives data as clear text. Therefore, we can use Telnet or Netcat to communicate with an FTP server and act as FTP client. In the example below, we carried out the following steps. We connect to an FTP server using Telnet client. Since FTP server listens on port 21 by default, we had to specify our Telnet client to attempt connection to port 21 instead of the default Telnet port. We need to provide the username with command user frank. Then we provide the password with the command pass capital D to XC9 capital C G capital D. Because we supplied the correct username and password, we got logged in. A command like stat can provide some added information. The syst command shows the system type of the target Unix in the case. Pass switches the mode to passive. It is worth noting that there are two modes for FTP, active and the active mode. The data is sent over a separate channel originating from the FTP server port 20. Passive. In the passive mode, the data is sent over the separate channel originating from an FTP client port above port number 1023. The command type A switches the file transfer mode to ASCII, while type I switches the file transfer mode to binary. However, we cannot transfer a file using a simple client such as Telnet because FTP creates a separate connection for file transfer. So just to break it down, we're going to go ahead and see what it's talking about. So the user frank right here, and they had the pass, which is right here. Alright, moving on. The image below shows how an actual file transfer would be conducted using FTP. To keep things simple in the figure, let's only focus on the fact that the FTP client will initiate a connection to an FTP server, which listens on port 21 by default. All commands will be sent over the control channel. Once the client requests a file, another TCP connection will be established between them. The details of establishing the data connection channel is beyond the scope of this room. Considering the sophistication of the data transfer over FTP, let's use an actual FTP client to download a text file. We only need a small number of commands to retrieve the file after logging in successfully. We get the FTP prompt FTP greater than symbol to execute various FTP commands. We use ls to listen to the files and learn the file name, then we switch to ASCII since it is a text file, not binary. Finally, get file name, make the client and server establish another channel for file transfer. So as you could see, here's the FTP using the IP address. FTP server and FTP client uses the FTP protocol. These are various FTP servers software that you can select from if you want to host your FTP file server. Examples of FTP server software include VS FTPD and Pro capital FTPND, U and capital FTMP. For FTP clients, in addition to the control FTP client commonly found on Linux systems, you can use an FTP client with GUI such as FileZilla, some web browser, and also support FTP protocol. Because FTP sends the login credentials along with the commands and files in clear text, FTP traffic can be an easy target for attackers. Moving on to answer the question below. Using an FTP client, connect to the virtual machine and try to recover the flag file. What is the flag? Username Frank and password is D2XC9CG and D. Alright guys, so we're gonna start this already. So FTP 10.10.139.180. I'm gonna hit enter. It's gonna ask for the username, which is Frank. Enter. So now the password, capital D to XC9, capital C again, G and D. Hit enter. Okay, so as you can see, the login is successful. So now I need to check. I'm gonna type in ls. So I typed in ls because I'm trying to what is the flag, right? So I'm trying to see what's saved in here, which is this file is FTP underscore. I believe it's underscore flag dot thm. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in get I believe it's capital G. Is it G? Oh no, get. Okay, so it's get FTP flag dot THM. So that was successful. So now all I'm gonna do is open another terminal. Now I'm gonna type in ls and I'm gonna do the same thing. Get FTP flag .thm. Actually, was it that? Alright, so I forgot the other way to do it. So basically all you have to do is just go on here and voila, here it is. That's you just basically copy and paste that. Alright, moving on to the next one. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and figure out how I did the other one, because there's another way you could just do it. So, alright, so basically what you'll do at this point, so you go to the second one that you opened, so you actually type in cat, so then you'll put FTP / flag dot THM, and that's another way to get it to populate. And like once again, you just copy paste it and you're good. So moving on to task 5, simple mail transfer protocol, or SMTP. Email is one of the most used services on the internet. There are various configurations for email servers. For instance, you may set up an email system to allow local users to exchange emails with each other with no access to the internet. However, we will consider the most general setup where different email servers connect over the internet. Email delivery over the internet requires the following components: mail submission agent, MSA, or mail transfer agent, MTA, or mail delivery agent, MDA, or mail user agent, MUA. The above 4 terms may look cryptic, but they are more straightforward than they appear. We will explain these terms using the figure below. So here you have MUA, MSA, MTA, MDA to MUA. The figure shows the following steps that an email needs to go through to reach a recipient's inbox. A mail user agent, or MUA, or simply an email client, has an email message to be sent. The MUA connects to a mail submission agent, the MSA, to send its message. The MSA receives the message, checks for any errors before transferring it to the mail transfer agent, the MTA server commonly hosted on the same server. The MTA will send the email to the MTA of the recipient. The MTA can also function as a mail submission agent, MSA. A typical setup would have the MTA server also functioning as a mail delivery agent, MDA. The recipient will collect its email from the MDA using their email client. If the above steps sound confusing, consider the following analogy. You, MUA, want to send postal mail. The postal office employee, MSA, checks the postal mail for any issues before your local post office. MTA accepts it. The local post office checks the mail destination and sends it to the post office MTA in the correct country. The post office MTA delivers the mail to the recipient mailbox, MDA. The recipient MUA regularly checks the mailbox for new mail. They notice the new mail and they take it. In the same way, we need to follow a protocol to communicate with an HTTP server, and we need to rely on email protocol to talk with an MTA and MDA. The protocols are Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP, and 2, Post Office Protocol version 3, or POP3, or Internet Message Access Protocol, IMAP. We explain SMTP in this task and elaborated on POP3 and IMAP in the following 2 tasks. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP, is used to communicate with an MTA server because SMTP uses clear text. Where all commands are sent without encryption, we can use a basic telnet client to connect to an SMTP server and act as an email client, MUA, sending a message. SMTP server listens on port 25 by default. To see basic communications with an SMTP server, we use telnet to connect to it. Once connected, we issue the hello hostname and the start typing our email. After hello, we use mail from RCPT to indicate the sender and the recipient. When we send our email message, we issue the command data and type our message. We issue this command right here. And I'm just checking where it's at. Alright. So, or enter to put it in simple terms. The SMT server now queues the message. Generally speaking, we don't need to memorize SMTP commands. The console output above aims to help better explain what typical mail client does when it uses SMTP. Answer the questions below. Using the attack box terminal, connect to the SMTP port of the target virtual machine. What is the flag that you can get? Alright guys, moving on to task 6, Post Office Protocol, or POP3. Post Office Protocol version 3. POP3 is a protocol used to download the email message from a mail delivery agent, MDA, server, as shown in the figure below. The mail client connects to the POP3 server authentication, downloads the new email message before optionally deleted them. The example shows that POP3 session would look like if conducted via a telnet client. First, the user connects to POP3 server. The POP3 default port 110 authentication is required to access the email message. The user authenticates by providing his username, user, Frank, and password. Using the command stat, we get the reply plus OK 179. It's talking about this right here. Based on RFC 1939, a positive response to stat has the format of plus OK NN MM, where NN is the number of email messages in the inbox, and MM is the size of the inbox in octets bytes. The command list provides a list of new messages on the server, and RETR1 retrieved the first message in the list. We don't need to concern ourselves with memorizing these commands. However, it is helpful to strengthen our understanding of such protocol. The example above shows that the commands are sent in clear text. Using Telnet was enough to authenticate and retrieve an email message as the username and password are sent in clear text. Any third party watching the network traffic can steal the login credentials. In general, your mail client MUA will connect to POP3 server MDA, authenticate and download the messages. Although communicate using the POP3 protocol will be hidden behind a sleek interface, similar commands will be issued as shown in the Telnet session above. Based on the default settings, the mail client deletes the mail message after it downloads it. The default behavior can be changed from the mail client setting. If you wish to download the email again from another mail client, accessing the same mail account via multiple clients using POP3 is usually not very convenient, as one would lose track of read and unread to keep all mailboxes synchronized. We need to consider the protocols such as IMAP. So moving on to answer the question below. Connect to the virtual machine at POP3 port, authenticating using the username, Frank, and password. What is the response you get to stat? Alright guys, so I'm going to type in telnet 10.10.139.180 at port 110. I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to hit user, Frank. Now I'm going to put password, which is D2XC9CG capital D. Enter. Now we're going to type in stat. Enter. And that's the password plus OK space 0 space 0. And for the next one, I'm going to type this in, RTR1. But basically, how many email messages are available to download via POP3 on the IP address is actually 0. So moving on to task 7, Internet Message Access Protocol IMAP. Internet Message Access Protocol IMAP is more sophisticated than POP3. IMAP makes it possible to keep your email synchronized across multiple devices and mail clients. In other words, if you mark an email message as read when checking your email on your smartphone, the change will be saved on the IMAP server, MDA, and replicated on your laptop when synchronized your inbox. Let's take a look at sample IMAP commands. In the console output below, we use Telnet to connect to IMAP server default port, and then we authenticate using login username password. IMAP requires each command to be preceded by a random string to be able to track the reply. So we added C1, then C2, and so on. Then we listed our mail folder using list, this command basically, before checking if we have any messages in the inbox using examine inbox. We don't need to memorize these commands. However, we are simply providing the example below to give a vivid image of what happens when the mail client communicates with an IMAP server. It is clear that IMAP sends the login credentials in clear text. As we can see the command login Frank and the password. Anyone watching the network traffic would be able to know Frank's username and password. Moving on to answer the question below. What is the default port used by IMAP? And I believe it's 143. Yep, it's 143. Moving on to task 8, summary. This room covered various protocols, their usage, and how they work under the hood. Many other standard protocols are of interest to attackers. For instance, Server Message Block (SMB) provides shared access to files and printers between networks, and it can be an exciting target. However, this room intends only to give you a good knowledge of few command protocols and how they work under the hood. One room or even complete module can't cover all network protocols. It is good to remember the default port number for common protocols. Below is a summary of the protocols covered, sorted in alphabetical order along with their default port numbers. And here it is. I'm gonna just let you read it. So I have FTP protocol at port 21, file transfer, clear text. So we have HTTP at TCP port 80, IMAP at port 143, POP3 at 110, SMTP at port 25, and Telnet at port 23. In the next room of this module, we learn about various attacks against these protocols and servers along with mitigation steps. By this you have completed the seventh room of network security module. Please proceed to protocol servers 2 room to learn about related attacks and mitigations. And that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next one.